In 2018, Sir Benjamin Julian Alfred Slade placed an advert for a wife. She had to be under 40, able to fly a helicopter, own her own coat of arms, and ideally produce 2 sons by test tube. He was not joking. Meet the man who treats romance like recruitment and inheritance like a business merger. To understand him, we have to start here. Maunsel House, 8 centuries of English heritage and what feels like at least 7 centuries of unpaid bills. It stands in Somerset, a monument to both history and heating costs. According to its website, Maunsel House is steeped in tremendous history, with, we feel, more than a touch of eccentricity, a reflection of its owner, Sir Benjamin Slade, 7th Baronet. This was no exaggeration. The house has 14 bedrooms, including one called the King's Bedroom, featuring a bed that can sleep 7 people. In true aristocratic style, the bed is designed for diplomacy, decadence, or both. Maunsel House dates back to the 14th century and has belonged to the Slades since 1772. Sir Benjamin likes to remind people that his ancestors fought in the 100 Years' War, though he's somewhat vague about which side. Today, the grand old house doubles as a wedding venue, film set, and peacock sanctuary. When you inherit a baronetcy, the house doesn't just sit there looking noble, it has to start earning its keep. And at Maunsel House, even the chandeliers have a day job. Before the peacocks, before the manor, before the headlines, Sir Benjamin was just Ben from Somerset, a man who turned containers into a fortune. After a stint in Australia, he built a trading empire, timber, shipping, even aircraft leasing. By the late 1970s, his business was turning over millions a year. He'd inherited the title in 1962 when his father died, but the ancestral home, Maunsel House, was still in the grip of his uncle Alfred and the formidable Aunt Frida. Family legend insists Aunt Frida tried to burn the place down several times for the insurance. She didn't succeed, though parts of the roof apparently gave it a sporting chance. In 1978, newly cashed up from business, Sir Ben bought it back, allegedly for just £25,000, complete with Aunt Frida as a tenant, paying £1 a year. It was, by any standard, a bargain, though possibly not one recognised by the local fire brigade. By the 1990s, Maunsel House was hosting weddings, film shoots, and the occasional aristocrat who'd wandered in by mistake. Each event was a cocktail of history, champagne, and mild chaos. Through it all, Sir Ben managed to be both old money and new money, an entrepreneur in tweed, a capitalist wrapped in heraldry. He could talk balance sheets and bloodlines in the same sentence and genuinely believe they were the same thing. In the end, he turned his ancestral home into something quite new, a house that worked for a living. But a house, no matter how well it earns, still needs an heir. Every dynasty dreams of continuity. For Sir Benjamin Slade, continuity meant one thing: finding someone, anyone, to carry on the line. But it wasn't for lack of trying. There had been a string of relationships and one marriage to Pauline Myburgh, a union he later said was complicated by 17 cats. It didn't last. Then came Kirsten Hughes, a long-term partner who lived with him at Maunsel House until, as he put it, she ran off with the handyman. He admitted he was more upset about losing a good handyman than losing her. And later, there was Sahara Sunday Spain, the American writer and poet. Together, they had a daughter, Violet. But in the British aristocracy, equality stops at the family tree. Titles can only pass to sons. Daughters, however talented, don't count. He could leave her the house by trust, but not the baronetcy. He wasn't without family, but for Sir Benjamin, lineage wasn't just heritage, it was mission. So, naturally, he did what any practical aristocrat would do. He launched a global heir search. The plan was simple: find the closest genetic match to a medieval ancestor, William Slade, whose remains he wanted exhumed for DNA testing. From there, he could begin comparing living Slades in the hope of finding a hereditary stand-in. There's no evidence he ever actually did it, But it's fair to say the idea caused a stir in the churchyard. Sounds like The Apprentice, but with fewer suits and more shovels. The winner would inherit Maunsel House, along with 13 peacocks, a herd of rare White Park cattle, and an annual heating bill of £24,000. A prize so glorious, it's amazing nobody ran for the hills. Then came a surprise contestant, Isaac Slade, frontman of the American rock band, The Fray. It was later suggested that Isaac Slade was a close genetic match, and the two became unlikely friends. Isaac politely declined the offer of a leaking medieval mansion in Somerset. Still, Sir Ben wasn't discouraged. He was certain the right heir was out there, he just hadn't matched with the right test tube yet. By now, the search had become more performance than project. He told one reporter that Papua New Guinea had offered him a solution, an email invitation to procreate with warrior women to strengthen the tribe. He asked for photos first, and even asked whether they still had bones through their noses. Some said he'd gone too far. Others said he'd finally found his format. In truth, his DNA crusade said less about science and more about self-preservation. He wasn't trying to sell Maunsel House, he was trying to keep the dynasty breathing, one eccentric idea at a time. And if the right heir never arrived, there was always Plan B. Find a wife and produce the heir himself, preferably by test tube. Yes, Sir Benjamin Slade was modernizing the art of succession, one genetic experiment at a time. Having failed to find an heir the traditional way, Sir Benjamin Slade decided to recruit one. He placed what may be Britain's strangest personal advert, part marriage proposal, part job description. The successful applicant would be expected to manage a 2,000-acre estate, handle weddings, staff, cattle, and ideally, Sir Ben himself. Let's review the essentials, which don't seem too far-fetched. Under 40, check. At least 5'6", check. Willing to accept £50,000 a year, plus board and succession rights, big check. And where, for most of us, the dating checklist stops at must-have sense of humour, not in the case of Sir Benjamin, whose criteria were, let's say, a little more specific. Willing to produce 2 sons, a male heir, though few noticed that conception by test tube was part of the plan. Experience of rearing rare cattle. What woman hasn't spent a lazy Sunday herding White Park bullocks? Expertise in peafowl husbandry. After all, who hasn't held a senior role in the Department of Peacock Preening Compliance at their local stately home? No cats. Apparently, 17 was quite enough the first time. Experienced helicopter pilot and shotgun license. Who wouldn't want a date who can shoot the unruly guests and fly the well-behaved ones home after dinner? The coat of arms. Well, that might narrow it down a bit. And last but not least, must not be a communist. Good chance that if you've ticked off the above, you're probably not a communist, but who knows? So it might be fair to say that the short list of suitable candidates was a very short list. Asked if he was joking, he wasn't. Beneath the theatre, though, there was a real fear that the Slade line, stretching back centuries, would end with him. For most people, the family tree is history. For Sir Benjamin, it was an endangered species. If the bloodline was endangered, the estate itself had to evolve. So Sir Benjamin turned preservation into performance. Maunsel House stopped being just a home, it became a venue, a theatre, and occasionally a headline factory. He turned heritage into spectacle, renting out rooms for weddings, hosting themed banquets, and welcoming film crews, all part of keeping the lights on. If you know country houses, you can picture the scenes. A guest being chased across the lawn by an enthusiastic stag, peacocks eyeing the canapes like shareholders at a buffet. And when bookings slowed, he didn't just advertise, he made news. He floated Maunsel House as many things over the years: an official residence, a political HQ, even a pandemic retreat. Plenty of space, and one can imagine the wildlife being less troubled than some guests. Hiring followed the same logic: butlers, chauffeurs, gamekeepers, and someone to organise the chaos. Whether the chaos ever agreed to be organised is open to interpretation. Beneath the theatre, there was real affection for the estate, for its animals, for the pageantry. He wasn't mocking tradition, he was staging it. Maunsel House still stands, part stately home, part stage set, part survival strategy. And Sir Benjamin Julian Alfred Slade remains its master of ceremonies, the last showman of Somerset. If you enjoyed this visit to one of the stranger corners of English inheritance, share it with your friends, hit like and subscribe to join us. And tell me in the comments, what's the one thing you'd preserve at all costs? House, habit, heirloom, or otherwise?